Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We're diving deep in with hosts all over the country. Today, focus of the conversation is from the lens of the host. And in our world, host has a capital H, which means that you own the property. And it also could mean that you have a lowercase h, which means that you manage the property. And in many cases, you kind of wear both hats if you're the operator, right? So let's go around the horn. And I'll start in the right upper right-hand corner. My man, Franco, founder of CoHousingsherpa.com, an OG host. And I'll just let him jump in on who he is and what he does and how many doors.
Definitely. Thanks, Quentin. Yeah, I've been doing co-housing since about 2020. So right before COVID started. I have about 140 doors now in the Atlanta metro market, or actually all around Atlanta now. And I have a property in Florida now too. I did in co-housing.
And you are a property manager and you're the property owner for both, right?
For
you
both.
handle both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you manage for other people.
I manage for some other people now too. Yeah. And I started, there's a lot of hosts that needed some help. So I started helping mentor a few hosts too that want to kind of get started in co-housing.
Yeah. And I'm going to put it out there for if you are a newbie, if you're interested in co-living, if you're interested in driving new revenue, take it down. Go to visit CoHousingsherpa.com and seek out coaching and see what that does for you. Because the people that come in better educated make better decisions throughout the entire process, from acquisition all the way through the operation piece. And that's ultimately what our goal is that our platform is going to grow and expand nationally. Great operators who are providing great product for members. All right, around the horn, Zahir.
Yes, I am a host and an operator. I have properties in Houston, Jacksonville, another one opening up in Georgia as well. I own half, host half for other people. This is probably my third year going now.
And the fun part for you is when I first met you, you're a syndicator as well.
Right? I am, yes. I have a lot of other real estate ventures on the side. I have 5 different investment groups, and one of them is a syndication, national. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes with my companies.
Perfect, right? And this is kind of what happens when we start meeting new hosts, is that there's so much complexity and context behind just the face. We meet somebody like, oh, you're a host. And then we limit it to actually like the context that we know them. But, in further discussions, there's so much depth and experience within our host community. And that's something that we're spending a lot of time visiting as well. So I'm going to go Shenika and then Mel, and then we'll get into the PadSplit employees as well.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Shenika Robinson. I'm a PadSplit host, property manager / operator. So I've been managing properties for my owners now since 2021 for 3 years. We have approximately 23 properties around Atlanta, and I manage about 81 doors. And then sometimes I do help out other property managers, like if they're, out of the country or out of town. Sometimes I'll manage other doors as well.
Nobody's more grateful for a good operator than we are.
Yes.
And Big Mel.
Yes, sir. Mel Watley, Atlanta market, solely in Atlanta. Own 7 PadSplits now, about 60 doors or so, 55 to 60 doors, and but have a property management company that manages about 132 houses and growing now. It's 1,063 doors. I've been in it since 2020 as well. Actually, interesting enough, Franco was, I think, was the first.
I think I was your first client, Bill. Yeah, I was your first client.
Yeah, that was the days when it was me running around the truck. I set up a lot of your houses personally.
You did.
Actually, yeah. So that was those are the good old times. But yeah, we've come a long way since then. Got a good team of folks, and steadily growing for the most part. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Like that's the power of the platform, the power of the ecosystem. We're creating businesses inside of our ecosystem. The best users, right? They're evolving with our platform and growing with us. So super happy to have you here. All right, Abby.
Hey there, I'm Abby Nicholas. I am the content marketing specialist at PadSplit, and I've been here about 6 months and just excited to hear this conversation between you all. I don't get a lot of insights into a huge host conversation like this. So thanks for being here and thanks for letting me be here.
So Abby's our parole officer today, so we don't get off the rails, and we try to keep it in the specs of what we actually need to collect in terms of content and the conversations that are useful, and then she's going to help guide us into anything that we're missing. And then one of my favorite guys out of Texas, Mr. Ahmed.
Hey guys, Adil, based in Houston. I am a PadSplit employee and also a host. Very enthusiastic about how we can improve member experiences and how we can do better with educating hosts. Hopefully that's what I'm here for today.
Sounds good. So the purpose of this call is let's get host centric. Let's talk about our business through the lens of the host. Big topic that's out there is occupancy, speed of booking, and tenure. And all of those dominoes kind of all work together. And one of the things that I really wanted to start collecting more was individual perspectives, because I think if we only stay in our lane and we only view it from one perspective, we may be missing where the trains couple together and make it more seamless. So prior to this, we were talking about 3 things that we really wanted to kind of get into, and it's just an open discussion. So I'll throw out the topic. From a host perspective, when a booking comes through the platform and the dashboard, you have in your own business an approval process for yes, no to that member. And if one of the things we hope is that, like, by defining and getting more insights as to how operators are approving, if we can communicate and better educate members, because maybe they just don't know what information is important to the person looking. So if we can improve that transparency between what hosts are looking for and the members, in terms of they're looking to move pretty quickly and get approved, to get moved into a place that they're going to call home. If we can make those 2 things a little bit more continuous and even, we'll speed up the rate of bookings and more successful bookings for longer tenure, so members know how to play in our ecosystem as well. So I'll throw it out there. Does anybody want to lead out with what is your current approval process for a booking?
I can go. Mine is a little bit simple probably than a lot of you, and maybe it'll get more complicated as things move on. But primarily, we ask the questions, what's your need? Why are you moving here? How long do you plan to stay? Like, that's the main things, because we know PadSplit does the background check, so we can see that they have the eviction, 7-year data on the member's profile, but they don't really say, why are you moving? And so that information in a member's profile is very helpful. And if they don't have it there, then we ask, like, why are you moving to this neighborhood? Welcome. How can we help you? How long do you plan to stay? Like, those are very crucial. If it's like, hey, I need 3 days to stay someplace, like, that's probably not the member you want. So that's one of the basic things.
You get that from a conversation, Zahir?
Yeah, we call every member within that 24-hour improvement period, like phone call, or text message, like, hey, do you have time to chat? Welcome. Where do you work? How long do you plan to stay? How can we help you with whatever you're there to do? So if they're like, hey, I live close to a bus stop, this is convenient for me, then maybe we'll help them find more convenient routes or something, like anything to help them with their stay.
Amazing. So if I was a member and I'm booking and filling out my application, what's the one advice that you would give me that would help you get quickly approved?
I would say be honest with what your intentions are and why you're moving there. I mean, the basic background checks and things are already done, but it really helps to know, like, why are you moving there? Is it a job change? Is there a family situation? Are you going to school for 2 years in the area? Like, those things are very essential to making the decision on the host side. So it'd be nice to see that information in your profile if they already have it there.
Cool. Anybody else want to chime in? Franco, looks like you took a deep breath. Get in there.
Yeah, no, I could add. And, our process is very similar to Zahir. I think one thing that's a little bit different that we do compared to other hosts is we actually don't call them We actually just send them an email with our questions and see how they respond. And so, like, I mean, occasionally we'll call, like, if they don't respond, because we only have 24 hours to kind of make a decision, then we'll try to be a little bit more urgent. But it gives us a lot of information. Number one is if they're not responsive, it tells us a lot about that person. Like, do we, they're not even answering basic questions that we have. Like, is this going to be a continued thing because we communicate through the platform. So if you can't even communicate with me now the way that we normally communicate, then we might have problems when you're in the property. And so, and then another concern a lot of hosts might have as well, what happens if they're not truthful? Well, I mean, if they're not truthful on the application that they give me, they're probably not going to be truthful when I talk to them on the phone anyway. Right? I mean, like, and then you would be thinking, well, Franco, I could sense like my conversation with them. Like, I'm going to feel like if they're like, well, what I found, through my previous experiences is that, like, I try to remove bias, right? Because then, like, now what you're trying to do is you're trying to profile a person over the phone, unless you're an FBI detective or something. Are we really trained to do that? Like, how do you know, like, yeah, this person potentially could be a problem? It just opens a lot of things that are just kind of like, well, now you're just guessing. Because we've had situations where, like, oh, everything looked great in paper. Like, we approved some person before that was like a CPK, restaurant employee. Like, okay, he has a legitimate job. We saw his paycheck, everything's good. And sometimes they just run out of hard times. They can't pay anymore. It happens, right? So it didn't mean that he's necessarily a bad person. It just that, like, things happen, and he just couldn't pay anymore. So, but we changed our process a little bit. And we kind of do it that way. So, but we ask a lot of the same questions I think a lot of the other property managers and hosts here do as well. But I think that's one thing that's different is, we kind of, and we haven't had any real negative experiences. It's not like our eviction rate went up, like it's actually things have actually gotten better due to some things that we put in place in our operations. But I think that's one thing that's different. But the type of questioning that we ask is kind of similar to.
Can you clarify something for me,
Sure.
Franco? A lot of hosts watch this. What's the mechanism for sending out the questionnaire, the secondary screening?
So we actually just email it to them. So we have a software program that we have, but it could be easily in Excel or anything else. It doesn't have to be like that. And then we email it straight out to them with their contact information, and then we let them know. We send them a message through the platform that, to respond right away. So then that way, if we have any additional questions, we could do a follow-up. And that's pretty much it. And in most cases, I would say 90% of the time, they respond pretty quickly. Because with our team, we have them reach out to them as soon as we get a booking. So within about maybe 15 to 20 minutes, we already have that out. And, because that's when they're most available. Lately, I've been noticing we became bookings really late at night. Like, in East Coast time, like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And so we respond within that time frame, within 15, 20 minutes, even at that time.
You have a VA team handling that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mel, you've got the only comma in the doors that you manage. Come on, big dog. What systems do you guys use for approval?
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll run through our questions. We do try to suss out history and character a little bit. We try to do it in the most non-biased way possible. Like Franco said, we don't want to make, judgments based on just, things that we might have in our mind. But so we ask about their criminal record. If they have one, to explain. We ask if they've ever been evicted, what they do for work. We want to know how long they've been working there. We ask about their habits of smoking, inside or outside, to just see if they smoke at all. We ask how long they want to stay. We ask them to agree to having cameras in the common areas and cleaning crews coming twice a week or twice a month. We don't have cameras in every house, but we might need them, so we've got their agreement. On a cleanliness scale, 1 to 10, we get that from them. We just sort of a character thing here. We ask them if someone's not taking out the trash or leaving dishes, how would you handle that? We ask them to agree to this is single occupancy and agree that family, children, guests, spouses are not allowed, unless there's an extenuating circumstance, and it is more than single occupancy. We ask if they're going to have any animals, service animals are allowed, but we ask the reason for choosing PadSplit, and then we ask if they have any questions for us. We also we ask for a picture with their driver's license. So yeah, that's basically it.
Got it. So Shenika, I'm going to let you chime in, and then I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah. Honestly, I do the same thing that Mel does, but not to his level. But I'm learning a lot of things from what you just said. So thank you. But one, I do call everyone within 24 hours and ask them pretty much the same questions. Why are you moving into this PadSplit? How long do you plan to stay? Another question is, where are you employed? How long have you been employed there? I too have them answer a question to let them know about cameras, because we have some cameras in the common areas, and just for future reference. I make sure they know that, they're responsible for cleaning the common areas, guests not allowed, no pets without superhost approval. I like having a conversation with them, because I kind of you can't judge nobody from the conversation, but from the conversation to do those questions, sometimes it leads a lot of members to asking more questions, because a lot of people are new to the platform. And so it gives them a chance to ask those questions too, like ahead of moving in. Cause sometimes people ask, well, do I have to bring my own linen, or can I bring a TV? Am I allowed to bring this or that? So I feel like the conversation is always healthy. I've also had some experiences where I've called phone numbers, and the people who've applied to the particular room use someone else's number. And I've learned that, people are booking rooms for other people that way. I've kind of had to deal with a few scandals. I feel like I kind of am not like an FBI, but in addition to that, I go on Facebook, I go on Instagram, and I go onto the police website and type their name in to see if they have any record. Because I've been dealing with some situations where it's kind of like one spoiled apple in the home, and it's making other people wanting to leave, where it's just making me as a host now dig deeper into each person that's booking, because it's I don't want to have to. I've been dealing with a lot of residents calling on the weekend due to police coming out, people not feeling safe, mental health things. And I've actually learned a lot about things, just from going on someone's Facebook, something as simple as, asking someone, hey, do you mind smoking outside? Someone to say, no, I don't smoke. And then you go on Facebook and you'll see something completely different. And it's okay, well, if you lied about this, this could be something else. And so, sorry, Quentin, I may be a part of a lot of those denials that you've been getting recently, but there are certain things that, and I don't own no properties. I'm a manager. So I'm I have to be a fiduciary. I have to think about my owners. And in Atlanta right now, it's taking 6 to 8 months for evictions to go through. And so it's I have 5 open evictions right now. So anybody that come through, I think on the PadSplit dashboard, you can see already if they've had an eviction, or if it says any number 1 or anything, it's just automatically denial. Because right now our portfolio just can't take that hit of risking, of having someone in the home who may get in a situation where, it's unfortunate, but then, you're going to refuse to give us back our property as well.
Is that something that would occur to any of you guys, is to put it into your listings? We do not accept former evictions.
You know what? I may need to add that to my.
It's a good idea. I actually never thought of it. I don't know. So I've never really asked a member, but I feel based on kind of how things go, I feel like a lot of members don't go through all the details anyway, to be honest. When they read it, they just kind of go through the pictures and see if it's in the location most of the time. But I've never tried it, but it's kind of pretty good idea.
I'm curious, right? It's one of the things that I'm testing with my property, and Adil, I'll get to you in 1 second, is I'm trying to be as forthcoming as to what the situation is in the house. We have 6 adults. This is the expectations. We're respectful, we're calm, we're peaceful, and we clean up behind ourselves. If you don't want to clean up after yourself, there are 6,243 doors in Atlanta for you to call. And if you don't have an eviction, you can call Shenika. and this is what I mean about the more forthcoming we are, it would save the time of I'm going to book this room and then I get rejected. And then I'm like, screw you. I don't go to book another room. Right. Like being a fiduciary. And Shenika, I love that statement from the host property manager side, but also being a fiduciary and member of our platform. Don't waste my bookings. Right. It costs me X hundreds of dollars to go recruit a member. Don't waste the booking if you already know what you're going to say no to. Right? Make it simple so that the people that are truly users of our system, they know what the rules are. I just throw that out there because that was a learning that I had. Like, and on my listing, it tells you like how many bathrooms share a bedroom. That was one of the greatest learnings that I had from members. So it tells you rooms 2 and 3 share bathroom B. And then I put a lock on bathroom B. So only rooms 2 and 3 have access to the bathroom. So 6 people aren't killing that bathroom. And they know that only those 2 people have the requirement to clean it. That came strictly from member feedback, right? And now when they book, they know what the expectations are. So Adil, I'm going to turn and hear from you. What is it that how do you approve a member?
Yeah, and great points that everyone shared. But I guess I've been in a very fortunate position that I have spoken to members directly in the past 2 or 3 years being part of PadSplit. And one thing that I've learned is that members, tend to always try to do best for the property, for the host. Most members don't want to get into any trouble. Most members tend to be good members. So whenever I get any applications, I always try to remove any biases. I want to make sure that, hey, data tells me that most members tend to be good members. I want to lead off with that. Having said that, when I have a conversation with members, I just try to see, how communicative they are. That's the biggest plus in my properties as a host. My biggest thing is just being communicative. I try to make sure that every house has 1 or 2 people that are super vocal about their experiences. I want to know if anything is leaking. I want them to at least be vocal about all of these things. So yeah, anytime a member is vocal, that's a huge plus for me. Then I get into the nitty-gritty of what their experiences are, what their backgrounds are, if their jobs are close to where the property is. And most of the times, if any of these things are not aligning up, we still kind of make it work.
Does the employment, if it's in the comments, I work at Chick-fil-A, and, would that help? Because right now you may not see that information. Right. If I'm telling my cousin to book a room in Houston, and I said, hey, these are the 3 things that these hosts are really looking for, and that gets you 90% in the door. And then for the 10%, don't be a jerk. Like, what is the 90% things that you want to see in the little notes section for members? Let's give some guidance on members. Hey, you want to get booked really quickly? These are the 3 pieces of information that get you 90% in the door.
For me, I think, the way I value, because I'm pretty flexible. A lot of hosts have their own style, but like for me, it's just more about, because the biggest concern hosts really have is going through an eviction. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's what all of us don't want to go through, right? And the main reason is because it takes forever to get somebody else out. But so that's why everyone's so focused on, like, is this person gonna pay? Are they trust? And I've like, for the most part, took chances with some people that I felt like, okay, like, if things don't work out, something happened with their job, which I have a lot of members where things have happened, their hours got cut, they got laid off or had to find something else. And, but they're honest people where, like, okay, they find something, they find another part-time job or something, we work out payment arrangement, and they get back on track in a few weeks. And so it really, what it really comes down to is the way they make money or how they're going to pay for this. Does it make sense? And what's my risk of that, like an eviction happening? That's kind of, at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking at, Yep. And I mean, I've always, and like on this topic, because, one thing that's interesting is, like, because PadSplit does accept members that have evictions, right? That is there. But I'm curious to learn if there's any host that's actually having success accepting evictions, because I know platform accepts it, but every host that I talk to have had bad experiences with it, with people that have evictions, but then PadSplit still accepts it. So I'm trying to figure out, and I know PadSplit has shared in the past, like, well, data says that we have no problem with people if they haven't had an eviction within whatever a certain amount of years. Okay, but have hosts within our platform actually accepted these people, and how well have they been doing, and what percentage of that goes to eviction? I think if that data is shared and it is compelling and makes sense, then maybe we're looking at it wrong, right? Or maybe we accept them, but there's a higher level risk, and then we make some adjustments. Like, there are many things we could do to accept them, to make the risk level acceptable, where maybe that makes sense. But I mean, most hosts I've talked to had problems, but I don't know. I don't want to view it. But I mean, on the topic of approvals, I think that's one thing that would make sense too, because if we're marketing to those, or PadSplit is marketing to those people, but then no one's accepting them, then what's the point of marketing to those people?
True.
Good point.
Good point.
Does approval amounts sway your judgment?
For me specifically, I mean, I'm not, like, I've had some where they're it's pretty tight, where, like, let's say they're approved for $300 a week, and maybe the room's like 200, or something like that. Because sometimes they have other sources of income, not just the way they got verified. So, like, depending on what that source is, and if it makes sense. I've had some recently where, like, a family member, like the mother or father or something, if somebody's helping them out, like they just relocated to the city. Like, if things make sense, then I'll take a risk. I know many hosts that don't, though. Like, they have a set model where, like, they gotta make certain amount of money, or they're gonna get it denied.
Right. And
mine's a little bit more flexible.
This goes back to price ratio. We talk about that term a lot. My room is 200. I have a 3-to-1 price ratio at 600. That's the conversation that we're having internally, is like, if that person approved for 800 a week, they're probably not going to stay very long, right? Because they have options at 800 a week, right? That's $3,200 that I can pay for housing. I have other options. So the price ratio piece is interesting, because numbers will state, if you're pinned to that, that doesn't actually extend to tenure.
On what you just said last, most of the rooms I see, they have like a 50% price ratio. So a lot of the people I see are approved for like 320, 340, 360, and the room's about 150.
Mhm.
And that's what I see in majority of the rooms I manage and I own, which is basically 50% of your income going to a housing at that point, which is a little bit higher than it should be on the national average. It should be 35%.
I think hosts having that information would be helpful too, because in that way hosts don't make up their own rumors about, like, how like, oh, we got to do it. Like, that's basically what's happening. So
Exactly. It's like, if you guys knew, hey, this is how I play in this sandbox, then you make operational decisions around that.
yeah, like, if, like, for example, like, oh, PadSplit takes into account, like, some expenses and this and that, and how we come up with this number, even if it's not the exact formula, but at least we know, like, okay, well, they take some of these numbers into account.
Got it.
Yeah, and then with the approval amount numbers, like, if it's not congruent with the room, like it's a 150 room and somebody's have an approval amount of 1,000, that's a red flag for me. Like, obviously.
People are selecting what they can pay, right? Like, if that was the case, everybody would be booking the $500 room.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm going to be, a fraud, I'm going to get the best fraud I can get until I get kicked out. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So there's something in there. And to your point, Franco and Shenika, I think you were talking about this, is like, the person's intent. Deal said it best. Like, they're not coming in here to gaffle you. Okay. Eviction data. That's really interesting to me. Does anybody have a strong feel one way or another? I know Shenika does. Right. But that's like, because you got some PTSD from dealing with some evictions, right?
Well, I mean, as of now, I mean, to be fair, I don't accept anyone with an eviction record either. But that's why. But hey, I mean, I'm open to hearing more about it and to see how we can help these people, right? Because I mean, business is all about finding opportunity in niches, right? And these people have to live somewhere, right? Like, they're gonna find a place to live somewhere, and most investors, like landlords, don't want to service them. So if there's some sort of opportunity out there, then hey, why not? But I would like to learn more about it, so I know I could analyze my risk, right? Because it's all about analyzing your risk. and is that risk worth the reward?
Just some quick 2 cents here. As a host, I recently approved a person who had an eviction in 2021. Whenever I come across scenarios like these, I try to, like I said, take out all the biases. I want to make sure that I'm not brainwashing myself being a part of PadSplit. So all the data that it's out there that, hey, people with evictions, if they have X, Y, and Z factors working for them, they're usually a good match. All those things I threw out the window, but I wanted to be super, objective about it. How, as a host, do I want to look at it? A person had a stable job. I looked them up, quick search on Google, where exactly were they kicked out of, what happened. And I feel like, I don't know if all of it is public data, but this person, when I looked them up, I could see what apartment they were staying at. I could see that, it was whatever. And the rents were like 1,700. Now the room that they're booking, that's like 900. So there's a huge difference. They're more likely to pay. Again, a stable job. So all those things were really good indicators. Having said that, I do want to understand, as all of you being such experienced operators, what other factors, we're going to get to eviction, but to Q's original question, what other things you would like to see from members before approving them? Because to me right now, with just my, whatever 15, 20 units, I just look at the fact that if the member is communicative, and with my understanding that members are inherently good, this is gonna work. What exactly are you guys looking for, and what exactly would you need from them more in terms of being a quick approval? Just to give you an idea, I approved a person yesterday in 15 minutes just because their message to me was that, hey, my name is X, Y, and Z. I live here. I work here. It's very close to where your property is. I am usually at work 10 hours, 12 hours in the day. I keep to myself. I'm very clean. Please let me know if I can live into your house. Very professional, very concise, and has all the information that I need. So it was a very quick decision for me. But I really, really am curious about what you guys do and what you guys expect or would like to see from members.
Yeah, that's great. So that their proximity to the house, like their work proximity to the house, would be very. That's a green light for me almost. That says a lot. But yeah, why they're choosing PadSplit, what they think about the platform, if there was some question around that, like I think would be helpful. Mainly, I think their employment, their proximity to the house would be very, very helpful.
Mel, because you're equating employment with you're going to pay me. Right, essentially,
well,
like employment.
It's convenient. Like people want, they want their life to be stable and and convenient, basically. And that we find those members who we hear that a lot from them. Oh, it's close to work. I really like this house. I want to stay here. Even when we've had if there's been an issue or something. Let's say we had just an example, maybe not this. There was a flooding, some kind of flooding or something, and we had to relocate them for a moment. We find out, I really want to be there because it's close to my employment.
Yeah. Legitimately, the number one and number two things that people look at are price and location, right? Those are the two things that they should look at. But there is a significant number of failed move-ins based upon not the location I thought it was.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. I think I mentioned this to you a while back, went into PadSplit, was being able for them to be able to search by location, and because then what happens is we give them, okay, I want a house in Riverdale, and then they get all these houses in Riverdale, and they're just one's in the other side of Riverdale, one's in the north side of, like, they're all far away from each other. And so, like, if we actually help them out by just like, okay, I want a place that's near this address, you know what I mean? And then we give them properties that's closest to that address to start first. It removes all of that. Then they wouldn't even have to use the map if they wanted to. But yeah, I to me, it just makes sense. Like, if I was a member and I was gonna look for a place, I would like to say, okay, here's my work address. I want to find places near this address, or this is my grandma's house. I want to live like near my grandma's house or something. Like, it just makes sense. Like, that's what I would do.
There's actually a feature where members can do that. They just put in their work address, and any property they click, it tells you how far away this property is from your workplace, essentially. How many members use that? Not sure. But to Quinton's point
Mhm.
of members saying that they did not realize where this property was, I think it has some nuances to it, because I've talked to members about that too, and I feel like the members who mentioned that were mostly saying that they did not realize that this was this specific street. They understood the location, but they didn't realize. So super pocketed locations like Atlanta and Houston, one street over, you can be in, a completely different realms, essentially. So you have a really, posh area, a street over, you can have the worst locations. And I think that's what some of the members said, that, hey, I understood where the location was, but I didn't realize that it was end of the street and not, middle of it or something like that.
That's a good point, Adil, because I think two things that jumped out from there. One is, I want to just touch on this one thing because this is pretty useful. The employment data, if it says DoorDash and Uber and Lyft, I assume you have a car. So if I have 7 people in a house living and I only have 4 parking spots, I don't approve that person. But that's on the operator to connect the 2 dots, right? Like, you go ahead and approve somebody else and there's no parking for that person. That's on the operator, right?
Yeah.
You're causing your own problem.
Would it still show though, Quentin? Because I think when they have a vehicle, if there's no parking spot, they don't show it anymore. I think. I'm not sure if that changed.
I don't think I agree that that's in there, right? But that's the assumption that everybody who moves in never gets a car again, right? So like what happens is, like, I moved into your house 6 months ago and I don't update it that I got a car, right? And like those things happen a lot.
I've had that problem.
Right, exactly. It's like it's a time and place, because the beauty of, and I'll throw flowers where it needs to. I come to a PadSplit and all of a sudden I've got an extra $400, $500 a month, right? And one of the benefits is, like, maybe I can get a car. So now all of a sudden I get a car to improve my life, and now I'm driving for a better job, but I forgot to go ahead and update my profile. So now that's up to the PM. Do you guys go back into your houses and ask questions and update what's going on the product, because that's what's actually being broadcast out to the world? Those are operational questions, right? And I'll leave that out to you, and none of you do it because I'm looking at your eyeballs and you're like, I don't do that. I don't do that. So again, just a suggestion for if we can keep the data really clean or cleaner, right? We kind of avoid some of these car accidents that we run into. Hey, I moved into a room, wrong room was turned, right? Wrong room was inactive. And then I get something crazy like, hey, I moved in, somebody's living there. Oh, wrong room, my bad. Right? Like, those are things that are just data cleansing. So getting back, you said something earlier that triggered me, and then I just had a brain fart and I forgot what it was. But it was I don't know. Complete brain fart. I'm gonna edit this part out because I have no idea what I was gonna ask next. Oh, I did. I wrote it down here. Do you have a different lens on if a member is a first-time PadSplit user or a transfer existing PadSplit user?
So I see a lot of this on some of the transfers, and when our VA called, it was obvious that person was in a PadSplit for 2 days, another one for a week and a half, and the second you see that, it's like, okay, well, there's a reason it didn't work out in those. So we do definitely want to see what the transfer is, if there's a way to find out through questioning. But I think right now we're generally, as long as the eviction says 0 and the background check says passed, generally anybody who's new to PadSplit, we do accept. I feel like you have to take a chance at a certain point, right? We still do have those conversations like, why are you moving? How long do you plan to stay? How far is your work and stuff? And we're streamlining that process, right? We're trying to get that process a little bit better, but I feel like it's okay to accept people who've never been introduced to PadSplit before. This is their first PadSplit residency. Like, how do you guys feel?
I love that, first of all, but I'll pose this question. Do you educate them differently on what is co-living? Or do you just accept the booking and...
That's a good question. You're talking about for like transfers, right? Quentin?
They have all members are now educated that they have one free transfer, brand new member coming in, they saw price and location, they heard about this through somebody at work, they book. Do you ask the question first time co-living?
It is in my list. I do ask if they I asked if they have any experience or if they've lived like in a whole co-living, like if they had roommates or something like that before.
Okay.
I do ask it, but it's not a requirement though.
No, if they say no, do you then go, if no, then go into a different talk track, or is it just no?
So if they say no, we tell them a little bit about it, like, you know, kind of like generally. So, but we do that before they move in. So let's say we went through the information and like, okay, we're going to approve them. Then we let them know kind of what is expected of them. So we approve it and then we just send them a message to them know, like, this is kind of like the expectations is how it works, you know, that sort of thing.
Got it. Shaniqua, you got anything?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was going to say, like he said, like I do, actually, that is one of my questions. I do ask them, like, have they lived at a PadSplit before? And if they say no, it doesn't mean that they're to get disqualified. I just continue going through the rest of my questionnaire. Because some of my questions do cover some of like the rules and stuff, like you're not allowed to have guests, you have to clean up behind yourself. But then after I get all the information that I need, I do give them time and say, hey, since you're new to co-living, do you have any other questions or concerns, you know, outside of everything that we discussed? Everything that I ask them, like I send that to them in email as well. Because even though, like, you know, like I think somebody may have mentioned, like, yeah, you know, yeah, they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to clean up behind myself, or yes, I understand I can't smoke in the home. But I also like having that questionnaire, and I kind of let them know it's almost as if like this is kind of like your warning, your first time of letting you know these things. Another question, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little off topic, but I had a few things in my mind I wanted to mention earlier, and I know we've been going to a few different things, but another question, another thing that I'll let all the members know is that I do come by each property once, sometimes twice a month for a property inspection, and I let them know that that does include their bedrooms. I let them know that, you know, what I'm looking for to see if it looks like someone's living here. Do you have anything in here you're not supposed to have? Does it smell like you've been smoking in here? And I do all of that, like someone mentioned earlier, but just to be transparent on the house rules and to set those expectations ahead of time. Because believe it or not, I've had some conversations on the phone with people about 30, 40 minutes, sound like a great conversation. And the minute I get off the phone call, they've canceled the booking. And that's happened a few times. And the first time it happened, I was kind of upset, like, oh my goodness, like, why did this happen? This was such a great conversation. But then it's like, you know, you're to come to find out, like, oh, this person may have planned on having a guest in the home, or maybe they thought they were going to be able to get X, Y, and Z. And so I've actually, through speaking with people, had some people just go through and cancel the bookings themselves. And I kind of just say, you know, thank you, because maybe that's just kind of a bullet I dodged if they're canceling out, you know, based off of these, you know, expectations of the house. So.
I love that. I love that, because I think the reality is, I've been using this analogy a lot, is if you go to church and you're 7 years old, you know the rules. Like if expectations are clearly defined and clearly set, most humans are inherently rule followers. The edge case where like you don't care, you're gonna have to deal with an edge case anyway. But if you clearly set expectations, those houses have much less drama. The hosts that have no expectations set, they're the ones that I see on Facebook groups talking about chaos. On that thing, expectations, how do you follow up on expectations? Do you have a 7-day check-in, a 10-day check-in, a 20-day check-in, post-move-in?
I mean, for us, we do similar to Shenika, we do the monthly visits and inspections of the property, and that helps a lot, because in that those are usually the times when we're able to have conversations with the members, and then just going off completely. I mean, we don't want to we want to give them their space and their privacy and things too. So like we only get involved if there's a time we need to get involved, like someone's complaining about something or there's a big issue. And for the most part, like you know, and a lot of times they're not used to inspections, so you know, like but it's just we're not checking to see, it's like, oh, is everything folded nice and neat, and it's just more like, you know, the house is in order and someone's not kind of overstepping their bounds by putting stuff in the common area and things like that, like, you know, bringing in furniture,
like a friend.
Yeah, bringing a friend or furniture or something like that. That's kind of, you know, where it gets kind of out of hand.
Okay.
You know, and what happens is once you kind of have a nice environment, when you have new people that come in, kind of to your point, they just kind of adapt to that environment and they kind of go with the flow. So if you have a chaotic environment, they're going to go in there and they're going to be part of that chaos. And so just kind of trying to maintain it as best you can. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I love that. The only reason I asked about like follow-up is most people, when they move into someplace, they booked it with a certain expectation. And the question is like, how do you guys close the loop on, did we meet that expectation? This is the expectation of of the member when they go to book. How do you true that back up to, hey, when you booked 170 a room, this was the expectation. Did you meet the expectation? Because once they check that box off, that's when we get into the conversation of tenure. All of us are trying to get to day 11. We know why, right? Like day 11's like, hey, let's go. Let's start getting paid. How do we kind of tip the scales into that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, really, because like if we're getting complained about something, let's say somebody maybe is not doing their part in cleaning, for example, right? And we get a member complaint that's saying that, hey, so and so from room 4 is not cleaning the bathroom and just leaving it a complete mess. Well, we just message room 4, have a conversation with that person, and then either they fix it, or we're going to have to escalate the type of conversations we have. I mean, it's not too complicated. I think the difficulty is some hosts maybe just don't do that. You know what I mean? Like they just don't communicate, or they don't want to get involved, or and they just kind of let them figure it, because most of the members that move in are adults, right? They're all adults, and they kind of know what's right, and they just try to see what they could get away with. You know what I mean? And sometimes if they get away with it, then they're going to keep on doing it and maybe do stuff that's worse, but then if they know that, okay, like they see me, like, we have cameras in a lot of the properties, right? And so then they stop, they just don't do it. And so, I mean, I don't think you have to be kind of overbearing with them, like, oh no, this is the rule, like, like rule number 126, you can't do, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that complicated.
The little forks weren't stacked with the little forks.
Yeah.
Zahir, you were saying something.
I don't know what I was saying before, but to your comment here, Franco, I think that's a foreshadowing of eventually they're going to stop paying. Because if they're not listening to the basic rules and all the other members are complaining about them, you approach them as an operator like, hey, we're getting complaints about you, and they still doing it, they're likely the ones that are going to stop paying as well. Even if you terminate them through, PadSplit support, hey, they're just going to squat.
Yeah.
So that's a foreshadowing. I feel like once you start to see that, multiple complaints, similar complaints, you warn them through the platform, they still don't change. I mean, that's time to go, clean house and just get the process started. I feel like that's my experience so far.
Okay, we're coming up on the time, so I wanted to ask one last thing, because we went from 4,000 doors 2 years ago to 15,000 doors. Okay, and with the doors comes owners, and owners, we have a significant number of self-managers. My favorite story is my friend Jim. He's an investor, and he loved the idea of co-living, and he self-proclaimed messy action taker, right? So he learned about it and then jumped in, and he's like, I'm going to self-manage. 31 days later, he was on the phone with a property manager. 31 days, okay? So with the number of self-managing hosts that are out there, let's help educate them as to the realities of the hosts that you guys are picking up as clients. Why?
I can start. Like, so lately, a lot of the clients, so there's been a couple types of clients that we've been getting. So one is the professional, like hedge fund type or private equity type groups where they have a lot of properties, and they're definitely not going to manage it, right? Like they're looking for a professional to manage those properties. So like that's one set, I guess, of clients that we are getting. And there's another set of clients where they're really busy. They love the idea of the model. They want to invest in real estate, but maybe they have a profession like a doctor or lawyer or something, and they don't really have the time to run it, because it is kind of a hands-on business, just like any other type of business that you would kind of operate. It's really not kind of a passive type of business. It does take some time, and so like we've seen a lot of those type of clients. And so what happens with the self-managers is they try to penny pinch a little bit, in the sense of, well, like, okay, why would I pay that percentage? I could take these calls, right? I could take the plumbing calls or whatever, like things that happen, and I could deal with these member issues. Like it's only a phone call. And what they realize is maybe their time is more valuable spent finding the deals than actually trying to operate the deal, right? And so that's maybe where their skill set is. So it's nothing wrong, I think, with self-managing, but you got to figure out like what is your style? Like are you somebody that just wants to buy a couple of houses a year? You'll self-manage. You're not trying to build a giant portfolio, and you want to maximize your gains because you want to replace your job, right? That's like a self-manager. Are you somebody where like, hey, I want to build a large portfolio. Maybe I give up some of it to a property manager because that's their skill set. I'm an investor. This is my skill set. And I want to make money not only on the cash flow, maybe it's a little bit smaller, but the appreciations, we're going to kill it. And I'm going to retire in like 5 or 7 years and sell the whole thing. Like, I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
Okay. Other suggestions or observations for self-managers turned clients?
I think, in my opinion, nobody should self-manage, because I self-managed and it was a nightmare. I had other managers and they were a nightmare until I started my own PM. One of the things I noticed is nobody wants to own one PadSplit. Even if they're trying, like, hey, I want to try this, their intention is always to grow it. To what ratio, I don't know. But in order to grow, I'll point it out to anybody I talk to. Hey, I'm thinking about PadSplit. What do you think? I saw you on the platform. Like, look, if you want to really test it out, you need to be not the one doing all the work on the ground, because then you can't see the forest for the trees kind of analogy, Nobody wants to own just one PadSplit with 4 doors. Like, I don't think that's anyone's intention. So you want to get past that first one, you have to let go. Like, that's my immediate advice to anybody. Like, given that 3 years ago, I was suffering through the same, I can do everything myself. I'm a really handy guy. I have to build kitchens. No, forget it. My advice is strictly no. Get off of that. Let somebody else do it. You manage on acquisition, go to acquisition mode, don't do the management operations.
Yeah, I would just say for the vast majority, this is true. I mean, obviously I was a self-manager, and just lean further into it, but that's, my style, as Franco mentioned. It depends on the person's style, I guess. But it's a lot. It's nowhere near passive. It's a lot more active than any traditional long-term. There's still a lot going on, you have lawn care, cleaners, pest control, gutter guy, and you're going to need, all kinds of, it's just a lot going. There's a lot of wear and tear. Well, more so on the house than traditional long term. So, it's a lot of things. A lot of it is repeated, right? But it's just a lot of volume going on with the house. So it will take your time if you don't have a good team set. It would take all your time if you don't have your resources in place. You need to have those resources and be thinking about. So if you're scaling, you're going to have to scale your resources as well. So, so maybe on your first 1 or 2, just to understand the platform. But if you're looking to scale at all, you need a proper manager.
Amen.
100. Shenika?
Well, I love hearing everyone saying, because I am a property manager, so I definitely understand why my owners have hired me and continue to use me for the past 2 years. Because I can honestly say, managing over 80 doors with 80 different personalities, there is a lot that go on. And when I first started working, probably for like my first 2 years, I actually used to use like a work phone number, and so I get a lot of messages like, to my phone after hours over the weekend. There's not a weekend I don't get a message or nothing. And I just think about, if you have your family and all this going on, with the things that come in at the time they come in, like, it can be overwhelming. I can see that. And it's like, we want to keep the members happy. If we want that tenure, it's like, we want their problems to be important to us, even though some things may not always be important. But it's like, I do want to make sure I'm responding. And so even if I don't have a virtual assistant because I am the property manager, but if I get a call or something at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, if I get a call back to back, like, I'll get up, I'll answer my phone call. Or if I don't respond, I'm responding at 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning, just saying, hey, I'm sorry I missed it, but I got your message. Can I give you a call at this time? But they want to feel, wanted. So
do any of you guys use an automated system for member feedback, like an SMS cadence
Are you talking about for like responding to events, or just like getting like doing surveys? Are you talking about like doing
Just surveys, contacting, like I've talked to enough members where I am alarmed when they say, God, you're the first human I've talked to in a year. That's real. It may
Yeah.
not be in one of your properties, but the feedback is like, because essentially Adil pointed this out to me. Our product is designed through the heart of COVID. It is intended an ability to have zero human contact, from finding the property, booking the property, moving into the property, maintenance tickets to the property. I don't ever actually have to talk to a human being.
I'll say something real quick because I have had those experiences. I've had people transfer over to one of our units, and when I talk to them on the phone, they're like, "Oh my goodness, thank you!" Like it's like they feel a sense of relief before moving in because they're like, I've never talked to no one else before. I didn't know, they were sending this person a call PadSplit, but to talk to you and to know someone's going to show up at the house, I have had a few of those situations. So I do feel like it matters because at the end of the day, they don't want to feel like we just want their money. They want to know that they're matter too. So. Again, and a lot of those people that I end up having those conversations with are people I'm ended up having to be able to help me in the home. If I need you to be there to let a vendor in or anything, just through those communications. So
as you guys continue to grow, because Mel, you didn't start with a comma in the number of doors, right? Like your business has evolved exponentially.
Oh yeah.
Franco and Zahir, like neither one of you today are where you thought you were going to be 3 years ago. One last thing that I wanted to touch on, I know we're running out of time. Shenika, you have a unique business model for your investors. Like you're the only person or one of the few that I know that arbitrages apartment buildings. What is that like?
It has its pros and its cons. I would say one thing, at an apartment complex, it's like we're treated as tenants just like everyone else. So when I do have maintenance, I don't have to call around for vendors. I just go through, their resident portal and I enter it under our account for the home. And so maintenance tickets do get taken care of a lot quicker and we don't have to worry about covering a lot of those expenses there. One downside though is when I'm having problems with members and like police is being called to the property, now I'm getting property managers involved. And if it's drawing negative attention to the property, like we have lost contracts at apartment homes because we've had like one person in the unit and the manager is just like, you all have been good paying tenants, but we're not going to renew your contract with us because of X, Y, and Z. Now, what I tell my owners, if we get an apartment community, I would like it to be on the higher end so we can charge the higher rate for the rooms because I just feel like on the lower end, you just get a different clientele in. And if they're not willing to follow everything, you all are pay all this money to set this PadSplit unit up. Some people are even okay with them turning the living room around just for us to turn around and have to move out in a year. So that is just something that we're a little bit more cautious on now. Like right now, everything that we look at now is like homes and everything, unless they have like some type of personal relationship, which they have been able to do that at one apartment complex that we have now where you'll sign a master lease. So we may have a lease with an apartment community for like 5 years. So now, like, at one apartment community, I manage 7 different units, but they have over 30 units, but 7 of them are PadSplit homes.
Got it.
So, and I'm the one point of contact for all 7 of those units. So, I just go in and enter all the maintenance tickets and I'm communications with their property manager. But
one last thing that I'll throw out there is because we talk to so many hosts that are new and their domino of the host journey is, hey, that's a really great idea. I think I'm going to make 2 to 3 times X the revenue. And then they find a realtor or a wholesaler to identify a property. Then I get a GC to convert the property. And then I get a last mile guy to put the furniture in and then take pictures. And the last person they call is you. And the thing that I've realized is you should be the first person they call because nobody knows the business that we run more than you do, right? Because you're married to them. Everybody else is dating for a little period of time, right? And then getting paid. So do you agree? Like when should a host engage a property manager? What's your intake for that for suggestions? And then we'll end with that.
I think that's a great idea. So one of my prospective clients from the other day when we were on with Jack, he reached out and even prior to that, he's in the hunt for a place to convert or to buy. And I'm on the journey with him, like telling him, yes, it could fill up in a week, but be prepared. If you're not at 50% in 6 months, don't have a heart attack. You need to be prepared because you don't know what's going to happen. So knowing that now he's setting expectations and okay, if my loan to value is this much, what's my payment going to be? Can I sustain 4 months worth of mortgage if I only have 3 rooms filled? And that's the advice I'm giving as a property manager, operator, and owner. Otherwise, he's going to get in trouble. It's not going to get filled. You get negative reviews, you get frustration. Then he never builds from 1 to 2.
Yes.
And that's that happens.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
that's huge.
one thing I like that, and that's a good point, Quentin. I think they should reach out to property managers first. And almost every instant, where like property managers are always the last people to be called, and then they expect us to do miracles sometimes if they made a bad decision on the location or layout design or something like that. And like there's so many steps that could be like I think a lot of investors forget like the concept is easy, but how every part of the step of that journey has an impact on the overall return, right? So from the location you choose to the design, how many rooms you're gonna have, the pricing, how you're gonna do refinance, or like, are you gonna do hard money? Are you gonna do a refinance after? Are you using more down payment? Like all of that has an impact on your return. And I think, unfortunately, there aren't that many people that's been in the business long enough to kind of let the investors know that. So I'm glad we're kind of educating them that. But they should kind of plan that ahead of time so they don't get themselves into trouble. And then they're not finding themselves where like they spent all this money, they did this, and they're not getting the returns that they thought they were going to get.
You know what I say to that, Franco? I always tell them, regardless of what challenges you face here, it is still this much percentage better than SFR rental. Yeah. It's still better.
Yeah. I think if like investors plan in advance, right, and they know in advance, like to what Zahir's point, the returns are here. You just got to do it right. I once had I was talking with a potential client before that wanted help. He came to me from Tampa. And he was like, Franco, like, I have this PadSplit. I have $200,000 tied up in it. I want to refinance it. Wow. How can I do that? Well, it's harder to do it once you have the house built and you do this whole model and you convert it. Like, if you talk to me in advance and we planned it out together, then you wouldn't be in this mess. You know what I mean? And so the planning part is very important.
The funny part about it is that we spend so much time talking with the guys that are converting the house for 100 days. We don't spend enough time talking with the partner and PM that we're going to be with for 5 years. That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's kind of where we find ourselves is you only want to solve the obstacle that's right in front of your face. And that is acquisition and conversion. You should be talking about, oh God, the business that we have is going to be operating this bad boy, to optimize. So with that being said, today in our world, last topic is 8%, 10 days. Okay. Hosts are not being prepared for how much working capital they need to carry in order to be successful to get to free flowing cash flow. Do you have a suggestion on that?
At a minimum, 3 months on the operating side, right? Not including the remodel, purchasing the property. Like just on operating, I say at least 3 months. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, and that's a minimum. And the reason why is because let's say a house, if you're lucky, let's say fills up halfway on the first month and then halfway on the back end of the first month or maybe even part of the second month. Well, you have a 10-day booking fee that you have to take into account, right? And they trickle in not all at the same time. So you're going to be negative cash flow in that month. And then the second month, you'll probably be negative too. And then the third month is when you're probably making a little bit of money, breaking even. And then the fourth month is when you're fully stabilized and cash flowing. Mm-hmm. And so, at a bare minimum 3 months to carry. And that's if they fill up within that time period. If it takes you a month to get like some members, which happens sometimes in some locations, right? And sometimes you might even not get the rents that you like it's like a normal other, like if you had a single family home, right? Like they don't fill as soon as you're done the remodel, then somebody just moves in 2 weeks. It's not all markets are like that, right? And so that's what I would share with new investors, at least 3 months operating capital to factor that into their numbers.
Sure. Very much so, right? Do you guys talk about that with your host coming on board?
That's a good point. So I don't talk to many new hosts, which is to your point earlier. Like I talk to people when they're like, "Hey, Franco, I have a problem in my house. Like, can you, look into managing it or help me with this to refi or something like they always come to me as the last resort. I'm like a lawyer, unfortunately, right? Like when do people go to lawyers? When they're getting sued, right?
Yeah.
Not before. They're like, hey, someone's trying to sue me. Can you help me fix my problem now? Well, if you came earlier, it would have been cheaper and we could have avoided the problem.
Agreed. Guys, I can't thank you enough for your time and your insight. I will be tapping back into this wealth of knowledge. And I'm super appreciative for you freely giving of your experience, because it makes our community better. And I will list each one of your companies in the description here. But we got Franco, and his property management firm is called Highest PM.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Highest Property Group. Yeah.
Got it. And then Zahir, do you have a name for your company?
It's Posh 2 Lux. No website yet. I've been too busy managing.
Okay.
But it will be up, posh2lux.com eventually.
Got it. Mel.
Yeah, we are PMI Atlanta West. PMI is actually a franchise that we bought into, but and we're the only one doing, well, actually, we're not the only one doing passive. There's someone in Florida that we put on. But yeah, PMI Atlanta West is our company.
Very cool. Miss Shenika.
Our company called is Greenwood Coliving.
And you take on other hosts outside of Barker's, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes just like, through vacations or something temporarily.
Got it. Abby, you have a PM company you want to start now?
I'm thinking about it now. You guys make it sound fun.
And Adil, you still self-manage?
Yes, sir. Until I get to 10 units, and then I'm gonna send it out and retire.
Just so we know, the over-under is 3, right? Just so we know. Again, historically, Adil would be on a property manager at property 3. So thank you guys so much for your time and your expertise, and being such good stewards on our platform. We look forward to talking to you guys next time.